Let's get. Thanks, Steve.
Good
Good evening, everyone. This is Rob Stevenson, the chairman of the school committee. It is 5:35 here on Wednesday, December the 4th. We're going to have our annual budget roundtable. I am going to turn this over to Superintendent Willard.
Okay, thank you, Chairman. I don't have a lot for you this year. I'm just going to talk about the main changes between what our previous budget has looked like and what this year's budget is going to look like. So the big difference is the out-of-district vocational enrollments and tuitions are going to the towns this year. I already have it all set up with the state. If you grabbed one of these sheets when you first walked in, I'll go through it with you. This shows you, this page with a large graph on it, shows you how many students from each town has attended Westfield Technical Academy and Smith Folk since 2011 and 12. And the current year, we do have 55 students, which is the most we've ever had, attending out-of-district vocational schools. We have 24 students from Southwick attending WTA, Westfield Technical Academy, 19 students from Granville attending Westfield Technical Academy, 8 students from from Southwick attending Smith Folk, and we have 4 from Granville who attend Smith Vocational. So these are the numbers on which the foundational aid that you are going to be getting from the state is based on these numbers. It's based on a total of 32 students from Southwick attending out-of-district vocational and a total of 23 students from Granville. Tolland, we don't have any students from Tolland attending one, so your foundation aid will be 0 this year. To know and anticipate budgeting for next year, you turn to the back side. If you look at grade 12, grade 12 has 4 students from Smith Voc who are leaving and 9 students from WTA that are leaving. What we are going to find out for you is how many of those 4 students from Smith Vocational are from Granville and how many are from Southwick, and how many of the WTA students, those 9, are from WTA and from Granville, because that will help you know and anticipate, do you have more students who are going to be attending next year, or do you have less students who are attending next year? So we're going to send out that email to you within the next day or 2, once we figure out the grade 12 students and which towns they that they live in. Does that make sense?
It's also going to depend on the incoming 9th graders as to what their totals are going to be, correct?
Correct. So if the same number of students you have leaving are the same numbers of students that you have attending next year, it's kind of like a wash. Right. If you have more students enrolling than you have leaving, then that will affect the following year's foundation aid, but it won't affect the foundation aid for the current school year. You will get like your own cherry sheet. So when the school gets its cherry sheet at the end of January from the governor, you will be getting your foundation aid, your chapter 78 at the end of January at the same time. This will also affect your minimum local contributions. It should decrease your local contributions because it's taking 55 kids off of our foundation aid, which was the responsibility of the 3 towns, but they're now going back to the towns. So minimum local contribution should be going down, and it should not be as significant as it has been in the previous years. Do I have exact numbers? No. But that is my best calculation and my best guess by talking to people at the state and by talking to people at DESI. That's what I have for you on that. I also brought Eric Wykander here tonight because, as you know, last year we did not do any capital projects, put capital projects in the budget. We've had 2 FinCom meetings in the past 2 months where we've been talking a lot about like some pretty significant costs and upcoming needs. The first one is, and this is one that is going into the budget this year. We got an updated number today. It is for the track outside. It's going to cost $192,000. We had it estimated at 160. But Eric just got numbers hot off the press about a half hour ago that it's going to cost 192. How do you say it, Eric?
We'll be replacing the wear layer, the uppermost surface of the track. It gets abused the most by regular use.
And I know, Doug, you've been waiting for this moment.
I
You're
told you
waiting
so.
to ask the
It
question.
was 80 grand when they put it in, we were talking to Ralph.
We
on
were
the way
in the
out.
hallway, it was 160.
It was
Yeah.
$80,000 when they put it in, and I cajoled you guys for 10 years, so you guys are gonna be putting $8,000 a year, because it's gonna be 80 and 10, and I think it's 11 years this year.
In 11
So
years, it's correct.
That, then one extra year costs you, $112,000. Just kidding.
No.
Just price, everything went up.
It's the cost of things, and that's why we
Do you think they put the 10 away every year, is that what?
we
Oh, I'm
can't do
sure-
that with
I
capital.
know they can't.
Can't do that.
Capital, but they
Double
should have.
check this, yeah.
But
Yeah.
when the track went in,
I know.
part of it,
Remember.
you know, whenever you do those CPC projects or any of those, everyone always ignores the ongoing cost that they deliver to a town. And we knew that was gonna be 80 grand and 10,
Mhm.
well,
Thank you,
211.
COVID. Yeah, everything went up. But, and then we have 2 boiler replacements. I'm going to turn it over to Eric now. He can do the best to explain about the, 3 stages of what's going into capital this year, next year, and then in FY28, FY26, 27, and 28. Okay, Eric? Oh, Doug?
Can we just go around the room and have everybody just quickly introduce themselves? Because there's some new faces and stuff around. Does anyone mind?
I'll start. Rob Stevenson, I'm the chairman of the school committee.
Russ Fox, school committee. Ted Locke, school committee.
Diane Gale, Southwick Select Board.
Joe Didi, finance.
Doug Mogul, Southwick Select Board.
Jason Pearl, Southwick Select Board.
Nicole Parker, Suffolk's Chief Administrative Officer.
David Ripley, Select Board.
Steve Delatina, Collins Select Board Chair.
Patrick Barrett, Selectman Holland.
Laura Burnett, Finance Committee for Granville. Randy Schwer, Colburn, Granville, Select Board. Gina Klasik, Granville Finance.
Eric Whitegander, I'm the supervisor of building the grounds here in the district.
And Paschke School Committee.
Sean Root, Powder Mill Principal.
Heather Woodland Principal.
Robin Dunn, Director of Student Services.
Jen Willard, Superintendent.
And Carrie, our Director of Curriculum and Instruction.
There you go. Awesome.
All right, Eric.
So, the boiler replacement project. So we've got, 2 schools that have sets of boilers that are in need of replacing. The Woodland School has the 1990 wing, which was untouched by the, MSBA project. MSBA wouldn't provide funding because the structures in that area were too new at the time of the project. So the 2 boilers in that section need to be replaced with, all the accompanying circulator pumps and things of that nature. To accomplish that, first we need a design. The design will be on this year's budget. It's just over $75,000 through our house doctor. And Ty and Bond is providing the engineering. The actual construction cost of those, obviously, it's very hard to pin down without a schematic design. I was able to corner Ty and Bond into telling me between $600,000 and $800,000 for the boiler replacement project, and that is scheduled for construction in FY 2027. Summer project's a little weird with the funding because of the window on which we have to work. We have to get funding in place, but the work actually may go on in the next fiscal year. So it's, because it's a summer project. The other project is at the regional school. We kind of have a conglomeration of heating plant there. We had a project in 2002, which added a large high efficiency Beastman boiler to the heating plant there, in addition to the original 1971 bank of hydrotherm condensing boilers that were already in place. All of that equipment is still there now. Unfortunately, during the building project, there was kind of a back of the, there was an estimate of heating capacity that was done because we were adding some electrification to areas. So we put electrified heating and cooling in the library, the main offices, and the computer and tech labs in the back of the room. And the engineers at the time determined that they could, instead of adding more heating capacity, even though we were adding more square footage, the trade-off between the electrified areas would be adequate. In practice, we found that it's not on the coldest of days. We start to lose ground on our hydronic heating. Not a lot, but if we have those 3-4 cold days in a row, we're not able to keep our classrooms as warm as we need to. So that's something that we need to address. Because we had the conglomeration of projects and equipment in the building, the best way to go forward is with a study of all of the HVAC needs of the building to make sure that whatever we invest in is the appropriate solution. So what we're going to do is in FY 27, we are going to conduct a study of, I'm sorry, in FY 26, we're going to conduct an HVAC study of the building. That will be on this year's budget. So just over $30,000 to conduct that study. Once the study has found an appropriate direction to go in, then we can have a design, which will be completed in 27. FY 27 will have the design. We're estimating that between $95,000 and $125,000 for the design fees. And then the actual construction will occur in FY 28, where we'll be replacing the heating plant in that building. Those numbers, because it's so far in the future and we don't have, never mind a design, we also don't even have a study. We don't know which direction we're going in. We have a very broad estimate there. We're looking at between $800,000 and $1.2 million for the replacement of that heating plant. So, any questions about the step process of design to construction there?
Did you break that down in a year?
Sure. So in
Total.
absolutely. So the boiler projects at FY 26, we're going to be seeing about a design and a study for 2 different buildings of a total of $107,500. In FY 27, we're going to see design and construction costs ranging between $725,000 and $925,000. And in FY 28, we will see construction costs for these boiler projects of $800,000 to $1.2 million.
You say you can't keep the building at 1. What would that entail?
We would have classrooms, if we had a 0, like 3 nights of 0 degrees and then 3 days of 10 degrees, which we do have sometimes, where we'll string 3 or 4 cold days together. Some of our outer reaching corner classrooms, instead of being at 68 to 70 degrees, they may be dropping down to 65, 66. That's below the set point that we need to be trying to keep our classrooms in.
Is there a state requirement for this?
There's 2 different requirements that we need to meet. The SE sets our classroom minimum temperature at 68 degrees. And obviously we're going to do everything we can to hit that target. And then OSHA also has an office environment requirement that we have to hit. It's just tough to say.
Would mini splits be looked at or not for the individual classrooms that you're having a problem with?
So no, that wouldn't be a cost-effective solution considering how few days that's an issue. That's the focus of the replacement project is not on those particular issues. The focus of the replacement project is the overall age of the equipment and the overall maintenance cost and efficiency of it. We need an overall solution that provides us with the most efficient and also the easiest to maintain system going forward.
So is the problem really the very rare and increasingly rare cold days that we have and will have? Or is the problem age and efficiency and conglomeration of equipment in general?
The latter. Yeah, the age of the equipment is the driving force behind the replacement project. We have some efficiency issues. We also have some capacity issues that we can address at the same time, but those are not the driving force here. The driving force here is we have equipment that's aging to the point where replacement hearts are starting to get hard to find. And if we have a heating system failure, we won't be able to heat the school. And then we're in an emergency situation where we have to bring in kids. Well, we won't be able to bring kids in, but then also we'd have to bring in temporary heating in order to fix that problem. The temporary solutions are always 3 times or more expensive than.
So what are the ages of the current heating units?
So at the Woodland School, the boilers that we're looking to replace are from 1989, 35-year-old system. And then at the high school, we have a Beastman boiler that's doing about 3/4 of the heating load from 2002. And then we've also got the original hydrotherms that were installed in 1971, and they cannot heat the building on their own. So if the Beastman fails, we're in pretty serious.
So this proposed project replaces
Correct, yes, it would be an all-encompassing solution that takes into account all the available energy efficiency incentives from utilities as well as state, if they're available. And it would be a one size fits all solution for the whole bill. No, everything is natural gas in the district or electric, yes. We have no more oil fired equipment. Although the boilers at Woodland have the old dual purpose burner, so we could bring them, but we don't even have the tanks in. I would prefer to continue on with natural gas. Unfortunately, we will be facing any mandates from the state. Public dollars are controlled. So if the state passes a law that says that we can't purchase a certain amount of equipment, we're bound to that. That's coming down the road. A lot of my colleagues at the conferences that I go to, we had a great presentation from Eversource this year talking about the electrification mandates in the state. As of this time, right now, we can definitely still provide natural gas heating. It won't be held to that, but that may change. So it's something that we have. This is really a good reason to have an all-encompassing, thorough design to make sure that we're checking all those boxes. We're making sure we're not angering any regulatory agencies, and we're not leaving any money on the table as far as incentives.
The engineering firm that steered us wrong during the building project was what the last time
I was not here for the.
about capacity of.
Oh, no, they were not the MEP contractor for that. And I wouldn't say that they steered us wrong. I think that they took a guess on capacity and it didn't work out in the real world, which it's not far off. Like I said, it's the days that we have these issues are the coldest of days. It's not every day, but right now we're doing fine.
Systems. That's what. In place.
So these projects, so the way the mandates would go into effect, electrification mandates would go into effect would be, they would be on a sliding scale. So we wouldn't be faced with a situation where we put a design on paper that was no longer allowed for construction. We would, once the design's in place, we would design to that specific requirement, and then we would be allowed to continue. I wouldn't say regardless of the law changes, but the way that they enact these laws, they don't turn us on our head if we got a design already.
If you want to avoid that.
Yes, if that's your priority. I mean, for me, I can tell you from experience that the electrification stuff, specifically split systems, VRFs, they're very difficult to maintain as far as parts availability. You get into situations where your unit's down and there's nothing that you can do about it. The hydronic stuff is much easier to maintain and repair. It's stuff that we do in-house right now, for the most part. And all the electrified stuff, we don't have the staff or the qualifications to take care of. And a lot of the contractors around here too also have limited staff. So yes, if we could keep it simple, I would like to.
Eric, how long does the assessment take? Because right now you've got this broken out where we're doing the, what do you call it, at Woodland? What are we doing?
Woodland, we're
first?
doing a design. We're
Design,
straight
okay.
into a design, no studies.
So we're looking to put the design forward for this upcoming fiscal year.
Correct.
We're looking to put the study at the high school for this upcoming fiscal year.
Correct.
If we get this, I was kind of asking the same type of question, would it make sense? How long does the study take to do? Could you do a study and design in the same year?
I believe you could, but the issue with that is I couldn't, yeah, I think you probably could. I don't think it's done that way. Number one, I think we want to stagger these projects. Because if you do that now we're putting our construction in both FY27.
Well, that was gonna be my next question. Once the design is done, is there a clock that starts?
No, as far as the regulations are concerned.
As to when you can start the construction?
uh,
I'm just wondering, would it be beneficial to get the studies done sooner? So that, because what you were saying is once the study's done, or not the study, but once the design is done, you're allowed to move forward with that design. if you did both designs this year, but then you did construction of one next year and the construction of the other the following year, would you be allowed to follow that same design at the high school if there was a year break in between?
Yeah, I don't think that's gonna be an issue. As far as the electrification requirements
Okay.
and avoiding them.
Okay.
I don't think that's not gonna be. That's not gonna be a concern.
Okay.
I think we should do this the way that we're most comfortable in financing it and as well as getting it done. Accurately with the most supervision possible. So we don't run into a situation.
No, understood.
I think, in my professional opinion, which isn't very professional, but, I would say that it's best to stagger these projects.
But we could still stagger the two projects and have a study and design done in a year.
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
However, if I remember correctly, they both cost money, so. If we did what you were proposing
Well,
and,
it would move $100,000 a year earlier, but my
Right.
question is if it opens up the opportunities to give you different options. Where if you waited for the design for the high school till the following year, could we run into a situation where the state mandates something and now those options are off the table?
That's
Because we did the design a year late.
It's possible. I don't see it happening.
Okay.
And also, I don't know that I would recommend, you need time for, once we've completed the study, there's a lot of engineering work that goes into, now let's move into the design phase. Because the study is to sort of decide a direction. Where are we going? What incentives are available? What regulatory things are happening? There's a good period of time there where we.
Well,
need
that's
to-
why I asked, can you legitimately
but
do them in a year? And if you can't, then leave it the way it is. But if we could, that might be something worth thinking about.
I wouldn't recommend.
The parts are on the shelf. No. Don't be much to spend my money.
No, I'm just, the proposal, Joe, would be if there's an opportunity
Yeah,
for us to potentially move a small piece of that a year forward, that gives us more opportunity to save money in the long run, then it might be worth a
right.
discussion.
You're doing both of them at once as far as the studies go. And you both, everyone here knows how the systems work, right? Nothing goes quick.
Okay.
You know that.
We're trying to do the green energy and get.
Yeah.
To get the HVAC studies done on the buildings.
Yeah.
It is a nightmare.
Okay.
Nothing's
It's finding the right contractor who's gonna follow through on it. It's taking forever.
So we don't want to use whoever they're. It's taken too.
right. We're trying to help you.
We have a house doctor, don't we, Eric?
Yeah, so we have, we went out to bid for a contract with an architect because we kind of saw a lot of these small
Yeah.
projects on the line. So we
You
have,
guys can use who we have.
yeah, we have an architect that's what we procured through Chapter 7 bid 2 years ago. And they helped us out with an Easter project, and some other minor stuff. They've been fantastic. They work with a ton of municipalities, even the town of Southwick's worked with them. So they're, they're great.
So maybe you could use our guy.
If we move forward with these projects and they're running natural gas. And the state comes in and says, that's it, no more natural gas, you see that happening?
So the state would not shut off the natural gas, so to speak. So what they would do is they would, the way that they're gonna try to move forward with electrification initiatives is to forbid the spending of public money on new construction projects that have primarily gas heating. They've also said that in all of those initiatives, gas backup will always be allowed. Because there are some limitations to electrification that we're facing now. When you get down to 0 degrees and lower, it doesn't work. So you're gonna have to have the same infrastructure in place anyway. And the thing that really bothers me about that is when you're gonna put in a natural gas system that has hot water coursing through your building already. Why not make that a great system? Because you're still investing in all types of valves and insulation, the regulation, everything, the ISO regulation, building automation. You're already doing all the control there. So just use that as your primary.
Natural gas.
Correct. Yeah. So it won't be a situation where they say, okay, that's it, I'm putting a lock on the meter, you're not using natural gas.
That's what I'm asking.
That
If
will
we
happen.
invest all this money into a natural gas system, is the state gonna come in and say, that's it? Electrify it.
No, the way that they'll move us forward, like I said, is to say no more public money can be spent on natural gas only projects.
Spend twice as much money to two years. One is not confident.
That's
it, exactly.
bureaucracy. Right, it's a very complicated, sure.
But you have gas now,
We do,
so. Because that's the other way that the state has been trying to choke down on gas, is they're not letting the utilities expand capacity to deliver. So, but you already have that capacity.
we
I'm
do,
assuming a new system's gonna be at least as efficient as what you have today or better. So whatever gas you're taking in now, you're not, your demand won't go up.
right.
And then the other thing I wanted Eric to just talk about is line items for this year in the budget. One of the issues that he raised is that his budget, he's been here 8 years, Eric,
Well,
8 years, and like his line items have stayed the same, but the cost of everything has gone up. So I'm just putting it out there now and just making you aware that you are going to see an increase to the maintenance line items. So that we're just going over and over and over because we haven't adjusted them for inflation since I've been here. So which is not the best thing to do because, as you know, if something goes down, we have to fix it. We don't have a choice. So Eric, you want to explain any of that?
sure. So what we're talking about here is specifically the supplies and services budget items that we have in our budget right now. A lot of them, as Superintendent Willard mentioned, have not seen an adjustment since 2017 or 2018. And as you know, things cost more than they did 6 years ago. So we're planning to adjust the budget to account for that. It's not something that we're doing. We're not carpet bombing this and just saying, let's raise all these budget items. And, this is the targeted thing. We took a really good hard look at the supplies that we purchased in the most volume. How much they've gone up over the last 6 years and where we could possibly save and keep things the same. One of the things that we've been doing all along, which is great, is adjusting our utilities. So that doesn't need to change. We're in good shape with that. Through a lot of energy efficiency initiatives that I've accomplished over the last 6 years. It's the only way that we've really kept this budget in check. We were over for the first time significantly last fiscal year. And the amount that we're asking for right now is really directly correlated to the amount that we were over last year. This isn't, we're making this adjustment because we think it should be made. No, we're making this adjustment because it needs to be made. And it's like I said, it's overdue, but we're not doing it just because. We're doing it because we were over last year. And we were deferring things, and we can't do that. I find it very disturbing to pick one project over the other when the overall maintenance of the building is not being addressed. So I'm not saying that we're doing that right now. We have kicked some cans down the road, and like I said, we did go over last year, so we need to address that.
You have a dollar value? Yeah, it was just.
Yeah, we're looking at just under $100,000.
But it's actually only 75,000 because 25,000 was taken out for Easter funds, Eric, am I correct?
Yeah, so $25,000 was removed from the custodial supplies and general service line last year. That money was supplemented with Easter funds for cleaning supplies. And as you know, the Easter grant is now concluded. Those funds are no longer available, so we need to return that back to the department budget. So if you think about it, in essence, we would have had to add $25,000 back into this budget from the numbers we had last year. And we're looking for another 74 on top of that. So it's really only 70.
What
But
is your
it's-
normal budget? What is it all entailed? What's your best number?
It's tough to pin down, honestly, because my cost centers I have a global cost center just for the maintenance items and salaries, and then my individual schools are part of their cost centers. If I had to give you a number, it would be, you would like it.
Yeah, I just compared to the $100,000.
Oh,
You know what I'm
okay,
saying?
it's with salaries included, it's probably like 1.6 to 1.
The other thing we talked about the other day was some of the items that we may have to put into the capital plan this year. There's some lights that need to get fixed over at Woodland and things like that. We want to try to be able to address some of that in more of an annual basis where it's not a big chunk that goes to capital. So we're actually looking at probably establishing an extra line item in the maintenance budget for repairs. Whether it be some lights that need to get repaired, something like that, where we set the line item up, it's there. If it's not used, it would go into E&D at the end of the year, so it's not a use it or lose it type of thing, but it allows us to deal with issues at the time that they arise, rather than having to wait to where it gets to a certain amount and it's got to go into a capital request. It would just allow Eric and his team to be able to keep the buildings in as tip-top shape as we can with minor things that need to get adjusted, rather than waiting till we have to get a big project. It's got to get done where it's got to go to a capital request.
Just a quick example on that. So for instance, we have some LED lights that are failing in Woodland and Powderville. Obviously, when you cross a light fixture, you look at it, so this has failed. The knee-jerk thing to do is to, okay, let's buy a new light fixture, let's install a new light fixture that goes on the operating budget. It's a small cost. The problem is that the conditions for failure for that one light fixture apply to every light fixture in that hallway. They all have the same amount of hours on it. So it's almost penny wise and pound foolish to call out an electrician to replace that one light fixture. The idea would be better if we were, okay, for all these to fail, let's line up a small project to replace this whole hallway for the light fixture. Well, the problem with that is that it's a $25,000 bill. And where does that go? There's no room for it in the operating budget. Do we want to set aside a capital borrowing project for a $25,000 light repair? I don't know. But also we need to address emergencies as they come up as well. So like that, we can defer for as long as needed to get the capital funding in order and go through the borrowing process, which takes time. But if we have, say, an air conditioning unit in a server room fail, that needs to be fixed right now. And that's a $10,000 cost. This just happened to two server rooms last year. And that there's no place else to go but that operating budget. And that's the challenge that we're facing right now without a designated repair fund, which is what Chairman Stevenson is suggesting.
And where would those monies go if not used that year?
I think they would, Jen, help me out here. It would be something where if the funds aren't used, they would go into the E&D fund, which we annually pull a sizable amount out of that to help offset the budget for the following fiscal year. So it would not get lost. It wouldn't get spent somewhere where we didn't need it. I mean, it would be allocated for that. If not needed, it would go into the E&D fund so that it could help offset the budget for the following year.
So we're basically looking at two increases. One as like just the fact that we haven't increased this button, your standard operating budget in a while. And just to keep up with the cost of inflation so that you're not in the red like you were last year.
Right.
Plus an additional one as like a just in case kind of thing. It kind of seems to me that maybe we just start with one right now and then add the other if the cost of inflation increased isn't enough.
So just to address that, that's actually a really good point. So this isn't this wouldn't be a just in case exactly. These are planned projects that we would be putting into our planning. So our capital plan includes the big things that we just talked about, the track wear layer replacement, the boilers. But my capital plan also includes small things such as those LED light fixture replacements, HVAC repairs or replacements. Those are flooring projects that would be a $20,000 to $40,000 range, something that might not make sense to have direct borrowing for or bundling into a larger project. So the planning would be, okay, we've got a 5-year plan with these small projects. Let's put a line item in for these repairs that is limited to that number. And that can change from year to year. This isn't just a flat, we're adding $100,000 and if we don't use it, we don't use it.
Oh, we need those lights.
Is it a motion thing?
There we go.
We just saved 38 cents.
Lighting repairs for this space included. So, so yeah, it wouldn't be just a just in case. This would be planned and targeted. And then obviously if an emergency comes up, if there's something in that 5-year plan that we can maybe move to the next year, those funds are already there and available. We don't have to go through a lengthy period of time to requisition those funds. And we can go ahead and get that project done right now, as opposed to putting more weight on
that those are capital projects, they're just smaller capital projects. And you plan for them, so why aren't they remaining in your capital plan?
Well, that's something that we discussed at the finance subcommittee. So we have to determine what the distinction, where the line is between those two items. What, according to the regional agreement, we will determine what constitutes a capital project by the definition that's clearly laid out there. And that's something that we'll continue to borrow for as we have in town meetings like we have. And then the repairs, whatever we determine, the finance committee determines. Those will be things that we would address in this operating fund.
Just for a minute, just for clarification, for the finance committee people. You know,
Trying to quiet
when
me
we-
down.
No. This isn't gonna calm you down.
No, it's not.
I mean, obviously, we had one meeting. We talked about capital planning. And we were looking at requests now that we have this increase of $30,000. Anywhere from $350,000 to $420,000.
474.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, so just, there's moving parts.
Oh, yeah.
The finance subcommittee is still working on the budget. Superintendent is working on the budget. And
Well,
then
that
we'll
doesn't
bring it
really
back
include
to
the
the,
superintendent side here. This is just to keep this young man going.
well,
Really, the track is the piece of it and then the.
Well, that's pretty much what the capital, right now, what we were
That's right.
looking at from a capital
Right.
perspective,
Yeah.
that's it.
And that's it.
That's it.
That's it.
But I also,
No, you know, I'm
I'm with you.
very
I'm with you.
conscientious.
That's it.
And so if we're looking at boiler replacements, we're looking at a
Well,
boiler
that's next year.
replacement.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
a million.
So this year we had the track, we did have I had the LED light fixtures in there for
Yeah.
50,000. The boiler design, the SRS study, and then potentially, we don't know yet, we're waiting for the new, Director of Finance and Operations, but, our van, every year we pray that it passes, inspection. It did, but we might potentially be able to, pay for it, the van with unspent capital. So that's where we are. So we're trying to keep it, we know what's coming in the next few years, but we have to do the track this year. That's like, have to.
Yep.
And then the boilers are have tos.
Yep.
So I'm always conscious to not bring forward anything else if we're having like a big ask. But I also have to say that we are in negotiations still. We're in mediation with our paras and our custodians. And we are just beginning contract negotiations with our unit A. So
That's actually what I was just gonna bring up, because so far, you know, we've heard about the shift in out of district. We've heard about capital, but operating, right? And I'm not on finance subcommittee, so I haven't had the opportunity to hear from these people, but I know that we have our principals here. I know that we have our director of special education and director of curriculum and instruction, and I know all of their budgets go into operating. So from your perspectives, and this is, I know, early in the process, you're still working on what you potentially will need for next year. But are there, I know negotiations will impact operating for sure, but are there any other things in your own budgets that you foresee going in, coming out, priorities that you guys have at your level? That's gonna, that you think will be, in the budget, effective budget.
yes, I can say that, one of our, coaches, took a different position next year, so as of right now, we will be eliminating one of our, coaching positions for next year to help offset the budget costs for next year. We didn't fill it this year, and we're not going to be, I don't anticipate filling it next year.
In sports, what do you mean?
No, I'm sorry.
No,
instructional
sorry.
specialist.
Instructional coaches, that was an item that actually came up a number of times last year when it did, I know at the Southwick,
We didn't have those when we were at school. We had summer school. Right.
so that was something that I had indicated that we were already had on our radar, we were looking at, so we've already determined at this point that one FTE is not gonna be replaced. And I just actually had a conversation with both the superintendent and the director of curriculum and development yesterday about that, and we're gonna be still continuing our deep dive on those coaches to make sure that when we get to the next, as this goes on, that it's not just oh, we need them. It's, okay, well, why do we need them? What do they bring to the table? What kind of progress are we seeing? What kind of results are we seeing because of it to justify the need for them to be in there? It's not, we need them is not sufficient enough. So that was what we basically got out of our meetings last year about those coaches. And I said we were gonna look at them, and we're looking at them.
Pam, to answer your question about special education, in the last few years, we have created new programs. We don't plan to create new programs, but we do need to expand existing programs. So the autism classroom at Woodland is now going to be 2 classrooms because we have children who are 3 years old. And then we have children who are 6 and 7 years old. So we're using the same teacher, but we're adding 2 paraprofessionals to help with that. This year we're using circuit breaker money for that. So that's this year. For next year,
Can I just say something?
please.
So if we use circuit breaker, it doesn't go in the operating budget, just for people to know. So it wouldn't impact your assessment. It's out of her circuit breaker money that she gets from the state. Which we get if we spend, it's reimbursed at 75%. If you spend over 40,000, there's this whole calculation that they do, and we get a percentage of the cost of our students with special needs that have like a really high price tag to them. We get a portion of that back and we use it to offset other costs in the district.
So for right now, you're using circuit breaker, and for the future to finance these 2 paraprofessionals. You're talking operational? Is that where I'm hearing from you?
We can, well, we're using circuit breaker this year. We haven't gotten to the,
To
the
what, to
details
what's
in terms
next? Okay,
yes, in
Okay.
terms of what's next.
okay.
There will always be circuit breaker money, as Jen was saying. And I think we did a really good job this year of budgeting conservatively in terms of what we were going to get for circuit breaker. And so that we got more than that. And so that's allowed us to not have to touch the operating budget or not do some other things and use the circuit breaker money for those 2 paraprofessionals. The other piece for next year is we need to add a teacher to our Pathways program, which is our life skills program at the high school. We have a few students going up who will be in 7th grade. The other students are in 10th grade or for our kids who are 18 to 22. And so Judy Beaton, the teacher, and I met, and based on the fact that these kids are considerably younger, there's a middle school schedule, a middle school curriculum. We're going to need to provide a teacher for those kids as well as probably a para. Yeah, please.
There's also a law where you can, in a substantially separate program, you can only have a 48-month age span. So we can't have 7th graders and like 21-year-old students in like the same classroom. They can't be in there. Okay, go on.
No, that's okay. So that is what I anticipate for next year. So again, it's an expansion of existing programs. Our numbers are increasing and the needs of the kids are substantial.
But Robin, this is one of the situations that if we don't do this, then these kids would have to go to an out-of-district placement,
Yes.
which would cost us a drastically higher amount of money. that we
Easily
would have-
$100,000.
Okay.
Yes.
So this is one of these, it's an added expense to us, but the failure to do what we're planning to do is gonna cost us 5 times more.
But that's what you started a couple of years
Yes.
ago.
Yep.
Exactly.
To
Absolutely.
try to control those.
Yes.
Yep.
And we're doing a really good job of keeping kids in district, so. Applaud.
Hey, was that your follow-up?
Yeah, that was, that's
Okay.
exactly what I was gonna ask, because I knew that that was the intent of creating these programs.
Yes,
And my
absolutely.
question was, is that working? So,
Yes.
absolutely, yes.
But I would say that, so I have the 2 programs, that eventually, but we don't have one at Powder Mill, when we had talked about what that might look like here at Powder Mill when they, so I don't know.
Next year.
No, for our discovery program, it wouldn't be for a couple of years.
Yeah.
But that could come down in a couple
Yes.
of years.
Ultimately, we will likely need to have a program for kids, specifically for kids with autism. We thought we were gonna have to do that this year. Things sort of settled out so that we didn't need to do that this year. But that is, it makes sense. Like, we're gonna keep educating these guys and they're gonna come up.
The parents happy that they're staying here?
Yes. That's all.
That's all I got.
Yeah, so now it's time for the towns to share with us. You could share with us, usually like, you guys let us know what's going on with the district. And can I just ask a question, because I know this is going to come up in negotiations, and I don't want it to be, Jen Willard is just assuming this, but it will come up. What are the appetites in the towns for a 2.5 override?
I will have the selectmen answer that first, and then you
Okay.
get my view.
Okay.
Go ahead, man.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah,
right that I've heard is there.
There's a difference between appetite and what you have to do. Thank you. Yeah, you're like,
You know, I don't think you're gonna get anybody to say yes.
so we're gonna cut things.
Absolutely. I tried last year.
Well,
I don't see an appetite for it. so-
yeah, no one has an appetite.
Collins does not see an appetite for it. Everybody's feeling the same thing.
How close are we to
Grocery
that?
stores, no matter where you
On
live,
the edge?
we're all going through the same thing.
Yeah.
It would be a tough sell this year.
I agree,
really.
but I just need, that was what I anticipated, and I know I've been here, next year will be my 10th year, I know, the communities in which I work, but I just wanted to make sure that I brought it out and it was said publicly, because I don't want people to think I didn't bring it up and ask, if there was a possibility and then the appetite was there. So I just, we don't need to go any further with the discussion, I just wanted to make sure that you had a voice and I asked you.
Asked and answered, right? So,
Right.
Got it.
Yeah,
That's
last year
all I
we talked
needed.
about it a little bit last year.
Okay,
It was in there. We're not far from it now, getting our cap.
Okay.
We're not. I mean,
How far are we, Joe?
I don't have it in front of me. I did copy it today and studied it. We're close, close enough.
Right.
One boiler project away.
Okay.
How's that? But we are. I think it was $1 million something. We are.
Yeah,
one
that's an
boiler.
honest answer.
And you need them.
But you're gonna fund that. I mean,
But you're not gonna fund
yeah.
it.
But I-
on the
but-
project, right.
Yeah, it's all good, but we're there. I mean,
we talked about this last year, right? You did, looking at the stabilization and looking at how that's all gonna have to play out. Because in the end, and I wasn't here when we regionalized, right? But looked to me like the regionalization, some of the stabilization came from regionalization. So basically it was a savings plan.
yes,
Now those CDs are coming.
yes, they are. And that's there as long as it's there, and then when that's gone, it's gone. So, but we're close, we're close. And we're not done growing as a town apparently, at least the town hall. Nine have positions left and right, so it's costs money. It is what it is. I'm sure Rainbow and Town are in the same boat, money's tight everywhere.
It is.
I can only get so much for a goddamn ice cream. What are you gonna do?
Yeah, but even when you win all those like awards.
Yeah, they cost money.
uh,
You do.
Well, I appreciate your honesty with me and it's good information because, there's only so much money, we can ask for when we go to the 3 towns and I'm well aware of that. And so, raises may potentially mean layoffs if there is no 2.5 override.
Right.
So I'm aware of that.
It's nothing personal. I mean,
No.
I'm glad to see these folks here tonight. It's great to hear input other than you. There's nothing wrong with that, but you bring it down to our level of life. Which I love. So it's a win-win.
Basic, that's great.
They do. We only see them once a year at the holidays. But the
Is this
track,
when I'm supposed to step on his foot?
Yes. There, Doug, it's the big,
when they do for the track, we talked about that. for years. We
We
knew
talked
that was
about
coming.
that.
The boilers, absolutely. 1970, Mr. Fox, what was the world's greatest class? What class did you graduate in?
And I gotta speak
I
louder
was
'cause it was
in
a
the
while ago.
first class that went all 4 years,
Okay, and what year was that you graduated?
1975.
And how old are the boilers?
71.
There you go.
So you
So
wore 'em
you
out.
both were new at one time. And at least replace the boilers.
53, because I was born.
One of them was done 15 years or so ago.
Yeah,
I
so
saw. They
the,
converted oil to gas, right?
yeah, so during that project, they added the basement, which is 2002.
Here,
And no, this building got all new boilers during the building project.
okay.
Yeah.
Woodland then?
Woodland, got half of their boiler plant replaced during the building project. The original building from 1959, got new boilers. The wing that was built in 1990, the NSBA wouldn't touch because it was too new at the time of the project. So that stuff's.
Wasn't one done around 2002, 3?
2002, the high school got a new energy management system. They went from static to fly-by-wire over there, and they put the V-spin in 2002.
That was under the Mallet administration, I believe.
Yeah.
But you gotta remember, when we did the rehab of all three buildings,
Yeah.
first vote failed,
Oh, I remember.
okay? So a lot of things were eliminated. And that's what bringing us here now,
Absolutely.
all right? So we saved some money back
Yeah.
then, but now it's time to pay the bill.
75,000 for inflation, things are waiting and so on. I mean, because you were hit with that right away. You really were. We were at town hall. Everything just doubled. When we started, so, you know. So I get it. And then the small projects for 25,000, 40,000, yeah. You gotta do. So,
And I
It's not a crazy ask. It's just an ask.
And I think some of the. Optimistically, I think some of the small projects that you're talking about capitalizing that you're currently carrying. In your maintenance line items, right? Like you said, you go replace a light fixture. And then you do another one and another one versus you do a project of 10 of them in that hallway. Well, you've been paying for those all along. So those are gonna come out of the budget, hopefully. At some point,
Or
because
we're
you would have
deferring.
capitalized. Right, but you would have capitalized those 10 instead of doing 7 service calls, which will
Right.
probably get the same price.
Right.
So, I mean, it's. Small dollars in the grand scheme of the overall budget, but that should help you a little.
Oh, for sure.
But I think, you know, we just got the tax recap sheet literally this week. And our levy limit numbers. So. I think we have a better idea, and a little bit, I haven't studied it yet, but I think we have an idea of where we are budget wise under the levy limit. And where we are on the rate, it's not, you know, we also can't. It's not just the levy limit, you know, the actual real, you know. Tax bills are what, you know, we really have to be concerned with, what we're mailing out. And it's not just here, right? We know
Yeah.
this is our biggest chunk, but you know, we have to be mindful of that through the whole process.
We go back outside just for a second. You're talking.
Oh, I thought you meant literally. I'm like, no.
I think I'm wrong, John. I'm dying. The track, we're taking care of the top coat this year. What other talks have been? Have there been other talks? about-
Yes. Yes, there's been other talks, but they're not coming up with, we didn't want to, last year we voted as a school committee to start an assessment of the grounds.
Oh, yeah.
So we have got the preliminary assessment done. We've got a number of options that we're looking at. There's a potential turf field with lights over by the base of the hill, rearranging a couple of the ball fields to get them in the right geographical setup, because apparently when they were originally set up, they're not necessarily set up the right way. Looking at from that end, we could break it up into pieces. We could do it all at once. The preliminary numbers from that, we're looking at if we did everything in the project, something around $10 million. Again, I mean, we're not certainly looking to go to the district, the towns with that. I mean, there would be fundraising, there would be lots of options that we've got that we can look at. I didn't want to sort of muddy the water with this year because it's not going to be this year. We're gonna be looking at having a presentation by John Amato once we get this sort of all cleaned up. Go to the individual towns, sort of see what the options are, why we're looking to do this, what kind of benefits we would get from going down this route. And then gauge the temperature and see where we are. I mean, it's certainly, I know, and I've heard at the time when the buildings got renovated, this was certainly a topic that was brought up. And it was sort of shelved because of the price of the buildings. Is it something that I think from a district that we should look at investing? I certainly do. Whether we do it ultimately is gonna be the decision that we all have to make, but it is something that we're looking at. And we'll have more information maybe at the end of this year. I mean, it could be something that we want to bring forward like for next year. So it is something that we have talked about.
Can I ask a general question? This is a selectman from the following. We've been trying to increase our salaries so that we are more competitive with our highway department, with our neighboring towns. Are the people in our town hall and our police departments, are other towns besides Tallinn in the process have been doing that recently in the last couple of years with their various departments?
We've done that. We've done an assessment across the board.
Yeah.
The surrounding areas and regions as far as comparisons of salaries. That's been going on.
Yeah.
That's pretty, I mean,
You're facing.
I've
the same
heard
thing.
some of the things I've heard is, people want more, obviously everybody wants one. But, there is issues, we're dealing with it right now as far as.
It's like a step on its son.
So
You're getting preemptive stomp
I'm
ready.
just making sure it's put in the right spot.
I'm just saying what I heard.
Or the state. We lost DPW personnel to the state because they offer like $6 more an hour and all kinds of benefits.
Even the schools, we're losing them to bigger school districts. They're getting SOA money and have better health insurance and we have principals that are leaving and just because they can be an assistant principal someplace else and make more money than they were as a principal. So I have to say Chairman Stevenson's been really good to work with because he does work in the private sector and he understands like we have to stay competitive, but we also can't do drastic price. But we slowly are doing some slow price adjustments in individual contracts, but it's not, you can't just jump up because we can't afford to do that.
Right.
It's tough.
Yeah, one of the main things that we did was increase our.
We did that last year. So
What are your benefit percentages?
75-25.
Oh,
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest, on our side, that's the one thing I hear from everybody the most, and I know it's a big number.
It's the only way we
And that's-
retain what we
Yeah,
have.
exactly, I mean, I think most of you know where I work in a municipality, and we're 75-25. And I've even talked to, hate to say, trying to talk for some of my own people. Anybody interested in coming over here, and the first thing they say is no way. I actually, when I first, my brother-in-law works for the town, and when he first told me what did we pay here, I'm like, no way, there's absolutely no way to pay that. If this came from Westfield as well.
Yep.
And I'm like, I honestly could not work in Southwick. I couldn't afford to work in Southwick with what the insurance hit is. But there's only so much you can do.
And that's something to look at. I mean, it's something we have to have a long protracted discussion because we know.
Yep.
It has
We
come
do
up.
something, it's
Yeah.
gonna impact the schools
Absolutely. we gotta
directly
do
and
a lot of stuff.
indirectly, right? But there's, and I know we've talked,
Mhm.
Nicole and I have spoken, Nadine and I have spoken. And I'm no expert on this, but there's more than one way to skin that cat too. as
yeah, and
far as how
I've
you-
already reached
and I-
out to
and we-
Nadine and
we
Nicole,
had a
so we.
discussion, so I
Yeah.
think there's a lot of things that can, levers that can be pulled to get there without it pricing you out of existence.
Yeah.
That would be
It's a
key.
shared model though, so
Yeah.
you just have to look at all the ways that you can get there.
Well, we're open to anything, so that would be great. We can work together.
It's one of the things that it's hard for me to hire my staff because they're at such a low salary level that really makes the difference in the hiring
Mhm.
decision. I've lost quite a few people.
We seem to pay more new people I guess, a fair wage or a decent wage, but the people we've had for years, we don't seem to go back and help. So I see us losing people because we didn't take care of X. But yet, when we have to replace them, we'll add that 10, 20, or 30,000 to it. So we can get that new guy, but yes, we shit all over the old guy. That's what I see.
Well, I could say I've argued that point.
We worry all you want, this is my
But
opinion.
you know what? And in all honesty, that's even in the dreaded
Oh,
private
in
sector.
private sector
It
for
happens
sure.
all the time. Like
They're
you
stealing
hire
left
a
and
new
right.
person and you're like, boy, this person's been here 25 years and they're making less money than the person I just hired or
Yeah,
slightly more. It's not commensurate. It's just, it's a
we haven't kept up, it
it's an
seems.
intractable problem.
And then we don't notice it until we are where we are today, and all of a sudden. For someone to even open the door, you gotta be at X, right? They can come and interview,
Yeah.
if you're
And
lucky.
that's why you
If
see
you're lucky.
That's also why you see more, especially, dare I say it, younger folks, there's more turnover.
Ton of
Because they'll
turnover
go
with younger
somewhere, instead of
folks.
getting 2 or 3% raises, they'll go to a new job in 2
Yep.
or 3 years and get 10%.
Yep.
It's crazy.
Take that over
And work
20
from
years.
Yes,
Yeah, that's it.
yes, no, you are.
And we're a border town, right? So if you're a new teacher, you go to Connecticut, they're making,
Way more.
Crazy.
easily
Yeah, that's always
10.
been
It's
that.
the
same
way in public-
I mean, I
It's-
walk,
it's still
Connecticut's
much more.
borders, more than
And
what
it's
I make
right
now.
there, so that's.
Yeah.
I've been there for 20 years.
Good.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Russ.
What is it?
Oh, Mr.
Whoa,
Fox.
whoa,
Closing
what's the
statement.
thing?
Is there a prayer or just a statement?
Oh, this is the
All
prayer,
right.
Mr. Dean. Now is a great time to reach out to your legislators
Oh,
and ask them to look at the aid that comes to regional schools.
Rural.
All right,
rural school.
reach out. Some of us have different representatives. If they get together, especially Western Mass is trying to get together. But we have to be one voice and be loud. So reach out, make that phone call, send a letter from the select board, from the finance committee. We're sending letters out, so do it.
Remember, rural school aid is the big one. They want it fully funded at 60 million. The Superintendent's Association is, it's one of their initiatives again, is to keep driving the 60 million. If we get the 60 million in rural aid, I think it was funded at 17.5 last year. 60 million would have a significant difference and make a significant impact on our district. Again, we're hold harmless. We're not going to see any more in that except for the per pupil. Last year, the per pupil was $120. If we could see that again this year, that would be great. Our association is pushing for 150. But that's all the money we get from the state is rural school aid and the minimal per pupil. That's it.
Can I just say something very quickly as well? I'm on STAM, which is a Massachusetts group for communities under 12,000 people. And I'm in the legislative committee, and we are very much pushing for rural school aid. We even have a day on the hill in the spring, so the STAM is, that is top priority is rural school aid. And it's not only for the schools, but it's also because the towns need, some money for mowing and things like that. So it is really a top priority for us.
The higher that number goes up, the lower what we have to ask for the town.
Right,
correct.
To make this work, so.
Correct, exactly. It's a difference.
All right, thank you very much, everybody. We're good, Steve.